Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Can you see me?
Yes. Good.
Okay, Hoi. Okay, let's go.
한국의 성장 가능성에 대해 어떻게 생각하십니까? 한국의 글로벌 경제 시장에서 중요한 역할을 맡을 수 있을 정도로 성장할 수 있다고 생각하시나요?
South Korea right now is one of the most protected economies and societies in the world. And that is one reason that the exciting growth in Korea has started stagnating, and Korea is not as dynamic as it used to be. Protectionism always leads to stagnation throughout history, so Korea needs to do two things. Well, first it needs to open its society and its economy to outsiders as much as it can. If I were Korea, I would completely open my economy and my borders to outsiders. Korea doesn't like foreigners, Korea doesn't like outsiders, but that's what they should do. Second, Korea should do everything it can to unify with the North. A unified Korea will be the most exciting country in the world. You will have a country of 80 million people on the Chinese border, a country with lots of natural resources in the north, lots of disciplined, educated labor, cheap labor in the north, and in the south you will have lots of management ability, capital, and know-how. It will be an unbelievably exciting country when you have unification. So that could make Korea the most exciting country in the world if you unify and open your borders. Will you do it? I don't know. I don't see any reason not to, but I'm not Korean. I cannot tell Korea what to do.
Okay, thank you.
당신은 농업이 아주 훌륭한 투자 가치를 지닌 것으로 보고 베트남과 중국 등의 국가를 매력적인 투자처로 보고 있습니다. 그러나 다른 아시아 국가에 비해 한국에서는 농업 분야에 대한 청년층의 관심이나 인력이 부족한 상황입니다. 앞으로 한국에서 농업이 중요 투자처로 자리 잡을 수 있을까요?
Agriculture all over the world has a great future because it has been terrible for 30 or 35 years. You know, as you point out, there are very few farmers, not many workers in South Korea now, but that's happening everywhere in the world. More people in America study public relations than study agriculture. Nobody wants to be a farmer. They're dying out and committing suicide. The highest rate of suicide in the UK is in agriculture. Millions of Indian farmers commit suicide. So agriculture has enormous possibilities and opportunities because there's not anybody there, including in South Korea. That's another reason you need to open your borders. If you opened your borders, you might have more people immigrating to work in the fields. If you merge, if you unite with North Korea, you'll have many, many more people who can work in your agricultural industry. So there are many reasons that you should change. And yes, agriculture has great opportunity. But again, in Korea, everything is protected. And there are regulations and controls. You need to open the agricultural industry to free markets, and you would have more opportunities and more people. Is South Korea going to do it? You're South Korean. I don't know. You tell me.
As you mentioned, regulations. If you were to speak with the Korean government about regulation, what would you talk to them? What would you say to them?
Resign.
Resign.
Close the government. Fire all the bureaucrats. Start over. No, I would get rid of as many controls and regulations as I could. Korea had a fantastic few decades for many reasons. But that's all behind you now. You're stagnating. People have young people are not ambitious and hardworking like they used to be for many reasons. They don't find opportunities. You need to open your economy. You need to open your society. And you need to do something to make people find competition or to have, if you had foreigners come, you would have more competition. Young Koreans would have to work harder.
Yeah.
They would have to educate, or they'd have to move. They would have to immigrate themselves. No, South Korea has the brains. South Korea has the gene pool. South Korea has the knowledge, the education. South Korea has everything it needs, except it is now stagnating and stultifying because of controls and regulations.
Okay,
and it is not good for the future of South Korea. It's a fabulous country with a fabulous history, fabulous people, but it's going into decline.
Thank you.
한반도의 전쟁에 대한 긴장감이 고조되고 있습니다. 남북한이 통일을 할 가능성에 대해서는 어떻게 생각하십니까?
I see them as great. I expect them to happen within a few years. It is one of the best thing that's going to be happening in the world. I know that if you read the press and the propaganda, things are terrible. But if you looked at Germany in 1989, things looked horrible. Within 1 year, there was unification. So just because things look bad right now, especially with government propaganda, American government propaganda, Japanese government propaganda, but in the real world, things are getting better. If you look at the Japanese stock market is making new highs every day. They're not looking for a war. The American stock market is making new highs every day. China's market is going up. You know, the American military is not mobilizing in Asia. There's no war coming. Unification will come before war comes.
Do you see that it will come maybe in 5 years, 10 years, or more than that? Sooner.
People who are against unification are the Japanese, because the Japanese know they cannot compete with a unified Korea. Japan has huge debt and a declining population. United Korea will be a fabulous competitor right on the Chinese border with South Korean qualities and North Korean qualities on the Chinese border. It'll be a fabulous, and Japan cannot compete with that Korea, and they know it. America's against it because America would have to move their troops. America wants to continue to occupy South Korea. So America's against it for their own selfish reasons. Japan's against it for their own selfish reasons. But otherwise, it should happen and it will happen.
Thank you.
한국에 새롭게 투자할 계획이 있으십니까? 2018년에 주시해야 할 리스크 픽터는 무엇입니까?
The main risk factor is that the Korean stock market is up so much. You know, any market that's up a lot has risk. I guess the second big risk in South Korea is Donald Trump. You know, who knows? He doesn't know what he's going to do. He could do something foolish. I don't think he would. But the main risk is that the market is already up so much, and the second risk is Donald Trump. The Chinese are not going to have a war. The Chinese have told the North Koreans, we will not help you if you start a war. They told the North Koreans, if someone starts a war against you, we will help you. But South Korea has said, we don't want a war. Mr. Moon is very clear. He doesn't want a war. So the only people who want the war might be America. But I don't think, I know that America cannot have a war without support from South Korea. And Mr. Moon has said, I don't want a war. No war. And he's right.
You talked about the high stock markets in South Korea. Do you see any bubbles in it?
Not yet. Not yet. There are bubbles forming in the American stock market. There are bubbles forming in some places around the world, but the market as a whole is not in a bubble yet. It might turn into a bubble later this year or next.
You meaning the market as a whole, as a global level?
Well, as in the U.S. as a national level, but therefore as a global level, yes. I do not know of any stock market in the world that as a whole is a bubble. Chinese stocks that are in a bubble, Alibaba, Tencent. I mean, there's some companies in China that are in a bubble, but the market as a whole is not in a bubble. Likewise in America.
Do you think North Korea would become an investment magnet if the Koreas agree on a detente?
It will be a spectacular. I told you, it's going to be the most exciting country in the world. When peace comes, when unification comes, the new Korea is going to be the most exciting country in the world. It's got everything. It's got management ability, capital, cheap labor, disciplined labor, lots of natural resources. You got a gigantic neighbor, 1.3 billion people on your border. Now, Korea, the new Korea would be very, very exciting. And think of all the money you will stop spending on guns. North Korea spends huge amounts of money on guns. South Korea spends huge amounts of money on guns. None of that money will be spent on guns. Very little of that money will be spent on guns in the future. The new Korea will be very, very exciting, unified.
You've mentioned earlier, should South Korea open up its borders more aggressively in maybe in few years to catch up with America and Singapore to boost its manpower?
If I were South Korea, I would open my border yesterday. I would open the border to anybody who wanted to immigrate to South Korea. But you're not going to do, I mean, you should. But by the way, you need it very badly. First of all, you have a huge shortage of females developing. I don't know where you're going to get your girls. You should definitely be opening your borders for anybody, male and female, but especially for girls, because you've got a huge demographic problem facing you. But I would open it today to anybody. Will you do it? No.
All right.
By the way, I want to repeat again. America 150 years ago you didn't have to have a passport. Just come to America. You come, we'll give you land. You see what happened.
Okay.